right, welcome in. This is FST Fantasy Sports Today. My name is Matt Striker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and we are chock full of information. Before we get started, quick reminder, at SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles. Do yourself a favor if you haven't already. Give us a follow. Take us with you. Put us in your pocket wherever you go, as well as the SportsGrid app. You're going to thank me later because Joe Pisapia has every bit of information you're going to need to dominate today. So let's make sure we have all that information at the ready. With that said, here he comes. That was my horrible drum roll. I'm sorry. I'm excited. It's Super Wildcard Weekend. Here comes Joey P. Joe Pisapia. What's up, my man?
Well, what's up is injuries. The same thing that's always up in the NFL, and how they're going to impact this weekend, and they are going to for sure. And we have to start with probably the biggest one, which is actually on the defensive side of the football. It's TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the sack specialist himself, a favorite potentially to win Defensive Player of the Year. Well, that knee injury is going to keep him out for a couple weeks. So even if the Pittsburgh Steelers should win and advance tomorrow, they will be without TJ Watt possibly for that game as well. But not having him in this particular game is very important. Kind of mention it now or once. So if you're just joining us, we'll kind of reiterate that fact. If you can't put pressure on Josh Allen's going to slip out of the pocket. Josh Allen's going to run on you, make big plays. And Josh Allen's also going to have more time to throw the football and is going to be less mistake prone. When you force Josh Allen with a pass rush, Josh Allen will try to do too much every single time. If there's one thing you can count on is Josh Allen trying to do too much. When you take TJ Watt out of that equation, I think it's a much easier day for Josh Allen. Now, look, Pittsburgh's going to have some other guys step up here defensively. They've struggled. I know Minka Fitzpatrick's going to play in this game. That's a good thing for them, but still not having TJ Watt is a huge loss here for this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, especially going on the road. You're missing the leadership of the guy on the field, not to mention what he does in terms of wreaking havoc there in the backfield, knocking guys down for losses, sacking quarterbacks, getting after it. That's what TJ Watt does best, so you're not going to have him in this game, and that's a huge loss. Also not available in that game is going to be Gabriel Davis. Now, he is an all-or-nothing guy, but still having him on the field is very important because he's another guy you got to account for. And there's been times this year where he has had some monstrous games and times where he's had 0 targets and 0 catches. It's been a very frustrating season for those people who rostered Gabe Davis in fantasy, either in season long or in any DFS week, and got those zeros. It was a tough thing to handle. But he is going to be out for today as well, so you're not going to see him. Sam Laporta. Now, this is an interesting one. He did not practice all week because of that hyperextended knee bone bruise until Friday, where he got a full practice in. Now, he is questionable. How he is going to be in this game, I don't know, because that knee injury last week with the PCL, it looked like something that he was going to be missing, I don't know, all of next year. Forever. Like, that's how bad this looked. I mean, forever. Yeah, I mean, it was terrible. And I understand he's a tough kid, and I understand, you're in the playoffs, you want to show up in this game, and can he even run routes as a decoy? This is going to be a lot to ask of Sam Laporta here, and credit to him for trying to play through this. We'll see how things go here, and you're going to get more information here on SportsGrid. That's why you stay here with SportsGrid all day long. Make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure you're staying on top of things so you know if he is going to be healthy enough to play in this game, because we're still waiting on word to see how that goes. Signs are pointing to be questionable. Seems like it's going in the right direction, but it is hard to believe. And then maybe arguably the biggest one too, A.J. Brown, who also suffered a knee injury that also looked gruesome and awful. Well, he is not going to play this week. So no A.J. Brown. He's out for Monday Night Football now. You also have Devontae Smith dealing with the injury. The Eagles are a team that have really fallen apart, and I don't know if it's that combination of the strength of schedule they were playing, along with losing Shane Steichen, their offensive coordinator, to the Indianapolis Colts, and he's been tremendous for them this year. What a tremendous young head coach he is, and look out for the Colts next year, because when Anthony Richardson's back and he's got Pittman and Jonathan Taylor and that offensive line, Colts are going to be real good next year. Just watch. But not having A.J. Brown now in this game where already Jalen Hurts was banged up with that hand injury, that's tough. A lot of people have given up on the Eagles, and I understand why. The question is, have the Eagles given up on themselves, Matt? I think that's the big question. What you've seen out of this team as they limp to the finish line, do you believe that's the case, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football put them out of their misery for good for this year?
I've been down to that city way too many times. I feel like I'm Dusty Rhodes. I've been down to that city way too many times to understand. They don't quit. Even when they're down, they don't quit. And again, you're not a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy, but I've fought guys from Philly. And even when it's over, it's not over. So no, I don't think they get put out of their misery per se. I do agree that they are vulnerable, they being the Eagles, but vulnerabilities and styles make fights. I don't know if you're into boxing, but we saw it yesterday with Artur Beterbiev just walloping Callum Smith. I mean, just beating the pants off him. You're not going to see that, but you are going to see a will, and that's why we tune in, Joe.
Yeah, look, Devonta Smith also doing with that ankle too. He expects to play, so that's good because not having A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, that would be death for the Eagles here. But it is really tough. I mean, you've seen a lot of negative comments around Sirianni. You've seen a lot of negative comments here on everybody. And this goes back to that other point that, we talk about every year, which is when the team loses a Super Bowl, especially in a dramatic fashion, as the Eagles did. The Eagles had a lead in that game. They lost. At the end of the day, the next year does not go well for them. And yet every single year we look at that big board, right? That comes out, minutes after the Super Bowl, pretty much, right, is over. And typically whoever lost the Super Bowl is either second or third. And that seems like just the worst bet in the world, because if you go back and you look, there's only two guys in the last 25 years that bucked that trend. One was the Russell Wilson Legion of Boom defense, mind you, Seattle Seahawks. And the other was Tom Brady. And we already gave you the stat of the day on Tom Brady. So you really can't put him in that equation. It's just not fair, because Tom Brady is not really human when it comes to those aspects of the game. As we said before, he is not one to lose, period, or let losing get to him whatsoever. But there's a lot of questions here to be answered in the offseason for the Eagles, no matter how this goes, because clearly they just could not get enough. And I think the turnover on defense, to a certain extent too, everybody was so excited. They got all these guys from Georgia and all made sense. But you know what? A lot of these guys too are very young still and green. And, maybe they need a little bit more time here to coalesce at the NFL level. You're not playing the teams in the SEC anymore. You're playing the Dallas Cowboys. And you're playing the San Francisco 49ers now. And things are a little bit different. So I think it's a different thing to dominate in college and then come to the NFL, and everybody is as good as you, if not better. So there's a lot here to unpack when it comes to what went right and what went wrong for the Eagles. I do think that schedule took its toll mentally and physically on them, though. That schedule and the way those teams were lined up in a row for them for about, 8 weeks, it was kind of not unfair, but it was rough. And then they had teams like the Commanders in their own division who played the hell out of them. That I don't think they were anticipating having to really deal with little brother in those games as much as they had to. So next year, maybe the Eagles have to make some wholesale changes, maybe look at themselves a little bit in the mirror too, and see if they can bounce back, because we'll see in this offseason who the Commanders bring in as a head coach, maybe even as a new quarterback. Who knows if Sam Howell's going to be that guy. We'll see if the Giants can get Daniel Jones healthy and have a good draft and continue to get better. And then the Dallas Cowboys look like a team that is ready to kind of take this division over here. Like I said, Eagles have a lot of questions regardless of whatever the outcome is Monday night. We return. We'll be right back here with more FST. Don't go anywhere. Stay on the grid. We pick some games.
Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
And the New York Knicks has one of the easiest schedules the rest of the way. If you look at a site like Tankathon, the Knicks have right now the 20th easiest schedule the rest of the way. Folks, they're 2.5 games behind Philadelphia. Philadelphia's starting to slip a little bit. I don't think the Knicks get to 3, but they should be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks. late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The Early
race
Line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took them
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. It is now time for Joe Pisapia, the one and only author of the Fantasy Black Book series. When you get a chance, go check it out. I do believe it is out for the upcoming baseball season, but the beauty of the Black Book is simple, folks. It changes the way we look at players. It changes the way we look at games overall. And I think, at least for me, in the time that I've been a Black Book kind of guy, it's helped me quite a bit, and it has padded my pocket. And for that, Joe, all of us, we thank you. Let's take a look at these big games here, and let's talk about what we see. And looking at the spreads, the money lines, the totals, we really can get a great idea. Steelers and Bills, outside of all the controversy, outside of all the moving parts, here we are. Joe, numbers are a language. What jumps out at you first?
Mm-hmm. Well, look, what jumps out right now, obviously, is it's a big number. You're getting 10 right now on DraftKings over plus 10 for Pittsburgh. You can get minus 9.5 over on FanDuel right now at minus 118. So, looking at the consensus lines of betting pros that you can find where the best place to bet these numbers are, you can see them all now. You're getting 37.5 at Sugar House, 38 over at PointsBet right now on the over-under. That's the best available lines for the over and the under. And then Pittsburgh on the money line, you get plus 410 over on FanDuel. That's the best place you're going to find it right now. And it is a big number. I mean, and we've seen time and time again, Matt, these big numbers this year just have not, been the case where teams have covered. And the Buffalo Bills are a team that I think we can all agree has been suspect in covering big numbers this year. Now, they have played better football in the second half. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going on the road without TJ Watt. They're going into Buffalo with their with elements that will be there, but they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, I don't think the elements are going to really affect them. It's not like Miami having to play in -1 degrees. I don't think that's the same kind of situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're a little bit more battle tested. Mike Tomlin's going to have these guys ready to play. But at the same time, can they keep pace? And I keep saying the only way to do that is to run the football some more. And that's going to be a tall task, I think. So, if you grind out clock, you don't give Josh Allen a lot of opportunities. Trouble is, if he makes the most out of the couple you give him, it's going to be a long day at the office. At the end of the day, this is a big number. I think the 37.5 right now, the 38, the under, is probably where I want to live for this game. I don't like the 4-1 odds of the Pittsburgh Steelers winning outright. I think the time has run out here on them. They kind of backdoored their way into the playoffs. Good for them. At the same time, I know a lot of Pittsburgh Steeler fans that are really upset about them backdooring their way to the playoffs because it means they don't get as good of a draft pick. And they know that without TJ Watt, this is going to be possibly a one-and-done situation. So for me, the lean here is on the under. I think that's the best bet you could find here at 38. I think the elements will have enough there where it's going to drag things down. And you're going to ask Mason Rudolph to go in the road in a big spot and come up big. I think that's a lot to ask. So that's where I'm going in this one. I'm going to stay away from, if anything, maybe I take the Pittsburgh Steelers side of the 10 because you always get that garbage time cover, that backdoor cover. Yep. It's definitely on the table here in this one. He's got wide receivers in Deontay Johnson and George Pickens make that happen. And that is enough to really be a little suspect. Of course, the Buffalo Bills could go in there and just mop the floor with them and beat them, 30-10. But at the end of the day, I think it's just safer to probably be looking closer to that under mark. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a 24-10 kind of game, and that's going to come in well under this under of 38. So that's how I see this one. Matt, any thoughts on the now Monday afternoon Buffalo Bills, Pittsburgh Steelers contest?
So the first thing I do is just look at the money lines and try to make them digestible for me. And I see that there is a 1.5x difference there. Let's just make believe that's minus 160 and plus 120. That number changes. But when you see plus 420 and minus 560, as Joe said it accurately, giving the difference of 4-1 or laying the 5-1, I'm completely off it. I'm confused even talking about it. What I don't like to do, but I think it's the only way to go here, is tease something with the total and the spread. Joe's right. Get that total up as high as you can and go underneath. Just regardless, to Joe's point again, without Watt there for Pittsburgh, Allen's going to have time to do whatever he wants. And with that said, that portends to Buffalo winning this thing. But if Pittsburgh can be successful on the ground, again, echoing what Joe says, it'll make it a little more difficult, and I think you'll see these numbers truncate and condense down even further. All right, let's turn our analysis to the Packers and the Cowboys. I mean, look at these numbers here. To me, this is the one. This is where you make your money. But, Joe, you're the expert. What's up?
Well, looking at the lines right now, you get the +7 at minus 108 over on DraftKings. You get the -7 at minus 110 over on FanDuel on the Dallas side. 50.5 for the under at minus 105. You can get right now, and at PointsBet, you can get the over at 50 at minus 110. If you like Green Bay on the money line, the best place to find that is FanDuel at plus 275. So you can make a case for the Green Bay Packers here. It's not absurd at all to me because the history tells us the Dallas Cowboys fall short of expectations. However, I do believe this is a different Dallas Cowboy team and a team that is really committed to throwing the football, a team that is playing, I think, with more confidence than they have in a long time. They have heard the detractors. They've heard all the negatives. And I think they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, more so than they have in the past, especially Dak Prescott. And I think it shows. And I think that's very important here going in. So I'd be leaning right now on the side of Dallas and the 7. I think they can put up a lot of points here. And Jordan Love, although he's played well at times, especially in games where they were underdogs. If you want to think about going back to Thanksgiving, nobody thought they could compete in that game, let alone win it, and they did. And that set Jordan Love off on a run there where he was spectacular for about 3 weeks. And then things came back down to earth. The key for them is this healthy version of Aaron Jones, which is something they haven't really had all season, but they've had now late in the year, and balancing out that offense. I think that's important. But at the end of the day, I don't think they have an answer for the Dallas defense or for CeeDee Lamb. And I think the Dallas defense, is going to get pressure on Jordan Love. I think Micah Parsons is going to be able to do that. That's going to be a problem. And I think there will be a mistake or two by Jordan Love in this game that will probably cost him this 7. And I would not be surprised if there was a defensive touchdown in this game for the Dallas side. That will also be something to watch for and to wager on too, because you're going to get a good number on that for the defensive anytime touchdown score for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that particular score is going to be the difference in this 7. So another big number here, very similar to that Buffalo game. However, at the end of the day, I do think that Dallas can cover the 7. The 50, I'm going to take the over here on that. Again, the best number you can find on the over is at PointsBet at minus 110. So I'm going to take the over and the Cowboys in this one. Matt, your thoughts on Dallas and Green Bay?
Don't want to be a broken record here. Find the best number for Dallas on Betting Pros. You can find that 7. That's great, because a lot of times that half will kill you. And Joe's right. A defensive touchdown is definitely in play as well. A lot of these anytime touchdowns for me, depending on the return, are the way to go. Really look into them, really, because then you don't have to sweat those situations at any time, right? And it's usually a nice return. We're always trying to look at least 3-1. All right, Rams at Lions. Here we go, Joe. Now, these numbers, they look more recognizable to most, right? Especially on the money line. The total. That, to me, is where I'm going just based on the elements or lack thereof. Floor is yours.
Yeah, look, this is one where, some of these games are going to go cockeyed. They're going to go sideways. You're going to have upsets here. And this is, to me, the upset. Detroit is favored in this game. They should be. They're at home. But the line's telling you at the -3 that it's basically just your standard. There's nothing special here going on. I think the special thing going on here is the Matthew Stafford return. So give me LA with the points here, -105, the +3 on FanDuel. I even like them on the money line, and the best number you can get there is at BetMGM at +140, so I will take them. I also like the over in this game. Sugar House, -109, the over at 52. So I'm going Rams clean sweep here. Rams with the points, Rams on the money line, and the over on top of it. I just think that this is where defense matters, and I think the Rams are, at the end of the day, I think a little bit more prepared for this big stage than the Lions are. We'll see if I'm right. We'll see if the Lions end up sticking it to the Rams and Jared Goff gets some revenge on the team that didn't want him, didn't think they could win with him. But my dad used to say youth and skill is no match for old age and treachery. And Matthew Stafford is old age and treachery, if nothing else. And I think Stafford's going to show up here. Now, when we return, we're going to take a look at Monday night's game. Is it a trap? And if so, how do we avoid it? We'll tell you, plus more player props right after this.
Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
And the New York Knicks has one of the easiest schedules the rest of the way. If you look at a site like Tankathon, the Knicks have right now the 20th easiest schedule the rest of the way. Folks, they're 2.5 games behind Philadelphia. Philadelphia's starting to slip a little bit. I don't think the Knicks get to 3, but they should be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The Early
race
Line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon, not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time
You have
decisions.
no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports
That
Rage
was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We
information. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting, ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, breaking down everything you need in order to profit from your love of football. Let's take a look at this now Monday afternoon, Monday evening. I've lost track. Let's take a look at this game here. Eagles and Bucks. I have it conflated with the Steelers and the Bills, but it's all snowy in my brain. Joe, we've talked about the fact that the Eagles are seemingly on the ropes and the Bucks could be poised here for victory. But looking at the money line, plus 136, minus 162, if that's the case, that's where you go. I mean, you want to take a minus play on the spread. What do you see here?
Yeah, look, this is a tricky one. I've struggled with this game all week, and I was waiting for more clarity on some of the pieces, and I think that's something we have more clarity. Well, I mean, we have clarity in the health of A.J. Brown on Friday, right?
True.
Like that's clarity. A.J. Brown is a game wrecker when he's healthy, and I anticipate him being healthy for this game, and I don't think Vegas did either, so I was kind of baked into this line a little bit. But when he was officially out, it really didn't move all that much, which is kind of surprising to me. I think, again, I'm just going to stick with my initial gut instinct here, which is Tampa on the money line. Plus 132 is the best number you can get on FanDuel. The best number you can get right now on the under is 43.5, and you can get the over at 42 at minus 118. Look, you can get plus 3 at minus 115 on DK on Tampa. That is the safer of these bets, but if I like Tampa, I might as well just go all the way towards it and just go straight for the money line. Give me the plus money. Let's get in on Tampa. They're at home. Baker Mayfield has an opportunity to win a playoff game. Baker Mayfield has now taken an AFC team and an NFC team in his relatively short career to the playoffs. I think that's something to keep in mind. It's an opportunity for him to play for an extension. And I think the Eagles have all the pressure on them. You know, Tampa does not have a lot of pressure on them, and I think they're going to come out fast and loose. And the other piece of advice that I've been giving all week to this game is this is the perfect bet in-game live situation where you watch the first drive of the Eagles, and if it looks flat, you go right to the Tampa side. And same thing, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come out there, look a little flat, Baker Mayfield doesn't look good, I think you go to the Eagles side of this game potentially if you're looking to wait and really be patient. Because if you look, let's say, go a couple weeks ago, we had a game that was relatively close on paper between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, right? That was on Christmas Eve weekend. The Cincinnati Bengals came out a little flat. Browning didn't look like Browning. And Mason Rudolph had that big touchdown right away. The crowd was live. They were into it. You could sense the feeling that the Pittsburgh Steelers came to play. They showed up. They were ready. The crowd was into it. And there was no way the Cincinnati Bengals were going to win that football game. You could just feel it from that opening drive of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You knew what was going to happen in that game. And I think this is a kind of similar one, too, where you could see one of these two teams coming out flat or even both of them, which makes things really difficult. I think at the end of the day, the smart money should be on Tampa. So far, again, we've gotten the home team winning the first two games. If you think that Super Wildcard Weekend is going to go where every favorite wins, you're wrong. It does not happen. That's not typically something that happens. Go back, look historically. There's going to be some teams, and that's why I like the Rams so much, because I really don't think it's going to be the Cowboys who fall short. I don't think the Buffalo Bills fall short at home. But I do think Tampa has an opportunity here to beat the road favorite Philadelphia Eagles that are limping into this game with so much pressure on them, without their best player, A.J. Brown, with a defense that's really just struggled to guard anybody. And now you got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Rashad White and Kate Otten you got to deal with. That's a lot. Yeah. I think Tampa's up for the task as Baker Mayfield gets hyped up for this game. The early money for me, give me Tampa on the money line. And if you want to be more patient, watch that first drive. Evaluate what they look like, what the crowd's like, what the energy's like. If you see Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield looking real good real early on, go right for that money line on Tampa because you'll probably still get that good number of plus money on it.
It's great advice, and I'll pass on a tip from our friend Dave Sharapan when it comes to in-game wagering. With regards to baseball, it's wait till the team that you like is in the field. With regards to football, wait till the team that you like is on the defensive side of the ball because you will get the better number. But with that said, Joe's 100% right, and that is a very smart way to approach any game you're not so certain about. So I like that a lot. All right, let's take that knowledge, Joe, and apply it to the over-under situation because this is what it's all been about. Our conversations lead us to this. Josh Allen, 224.5 passing yards. Does he go over or under this? Reminding listeners, viewers, audience members, no Watt in this game. What will that do to this prop?
Ooh,
I couldn't resist.
You've been waiting all day for that, haven't you? I can always sense when you've been waiting for a good dad joke.
As it usually does.
So 224, this is a number he's gone over in 2 of his last 3 games. The game against the New England Patriots, he only threw for 169, but the Patriots defense, I think we can all agree, the Patriots didn't do a lot of things well this year, but they played defense. So that's probably why Gerard Mayo at the end of the day got the gig. But they did play defense and they did stop the run. That's what they did. But I think this is an achievable number. I know a lot of people are going to like the under on this one because of the weather and the implications and the wind and the game and all that other stuff. I keep coming back to the same thing that we've been talking about all day long, which is no TJ Watt, no pass rush time in the pocket. Time in the pocket means a better version of Josh Allen that's less mistake prone. So if he's not making turnovers, he's got the ball in his hands longer. They're moving the chains. They're accumulating more yardage. They have longer drives. That all screams over to me in Josh Allen. So 224, I think, is a pretty good number here you're getting on him. Yeah, the elements are going to be an issue, sure, in this game, but he's not bereft of this. If you look at last year, right, the playoff game in the snow with the Cincinnati Bengals, like it didn't matter. Josh Allen's one of these guys that, he's been playing there a long time. I'm not concerned about Josh Allen's ability to throw the football in any sort of condition. So to me, this is one where I would go the over on the 224. You're seeing some other spots here too that have it much higher at this stage too, as this number has fluctuated now because of the movement. So you've seen it right now. Some of those 225.5 is what you're getting in some of the other spots here. So again, it's moved up slightly, but think about this. This number opened at 243.5, and because of the weather, it's gone all the way down to 225.5. I love that because now that the game is shifted and they're not playing in what was supposed to be the weather today, I'm going right back to what the original number was. So give me the over. I think it's a much better set of circumstances. Not perfect, but at the end of the day, I think this one's an over for Josh Allen. That's where I'd put my money.
All right. And I like the logic. I just know that a lot of capital is going to be lost just in the transition of the game movement alone. I think we need to take that out of our minds. So good on you. All right, George Pickens, he'll be a part of this game. 40.5 receiving yards. Over or under, what says you, Joe?
Yeah, the Pickens one is tough because Pickens is that big play kind of wide receiver. So you're always playing a dangerous game with over-under props for him. I would lean towards the over. I know, the game against Baltimore, obviously, we all know what happened there. We can kind of brush that off. But the 2 games with Mason Rudolph, 195 against the Cincinnati Bengals, which is that game I was just referencing earlier, 131 against the Seattle Seahawks. So despite the fact that the Bills have tightened things up here defensively, I don't understand how this number is so low. 40.5 seems like a smash to me. So even if it's late in the game, even if it doesn't matter and it's garbage time, I think George Pickens, I'm going the over on the 40.5. I just don't see how this number is so low considering what he has done with Mason Rudolph. Even if you go back before that, 47 against Indianapolis. Again, the down week against the New England Patriots, 5 catches for 19 yards. But before that, 86, 58. He has basically gone over this pretty much every single game that he's played, save that last one and the Patriots. So as long as not playing the Ravens or the Patriots, 2 of the better defenses in the AFC, I think this one's achievable. Buffalo Bills are a good defense, improved from where they were earlier in the season, but certainly not the same level of elite. I don't think we should call the Buffalo Bills defense an elite unit by any stretch of the means. So give me the over on the 40.5 when it comes to George Pickens on Monday afternoon.
All right. I like it. Now let's move to a quarterback here, sitting at 277.5 passing yards. Full legal name is Rain Dakota Prescott. You know him as Dak. Is he going over or under 277.5, Joseph?
Look, 277 is a pretty big number. He went over this against Washington. He went over it against Detroit, but under against Miami, under against Buffalo, and under against Philly. So this is very tricky. To me, this one is a stay away. I don't love this one nearly as much as I love Matthew Stafford, 272.5. Now, that's also a high number, but I think you're going to really get the 300-yard game out of Stafford. I think that's a lock there. So give me the Stafford number over the Dak Prescott one, because I think there's just a little bit more potential there in that other game for the shootout. in Ford Field where you've gotten so many of those. Because there is a realm there where the defense comes out so well, really puts a hurting on Jordan Love early on. Next thing you know, maybe this is a little bit of a game management situation for Prescott. Whereas I just don't see any scenario where that works with the Detroit Rams game. So if there's one that I prefer, it's that one. And then if you're going to look for another possible over-under that's really intriguing, it's Jordan Love, 34.5 pass attempts. Now, I know this number sounds like a pretty high one, but if they are behind in this game, they're going to have to throw the football. And I think that's probably the scenario you're looking at. 34 is not a number he has reached in his last 3 games, but he did go over at Jordan Love in the 3 previously before that. So this one to me is right there. I would lean towards the over with Jordan Love on this pass attempts number specifically, because I do think the game script means they play from behind. They're going to have to push the football, even with a healthy Aaron Jones, who I think is part of that passing game and part of these attempts. I think at the end of the day, this gets closer to that 36-37 and not quite that 34. Now, when we come back, we're going to continue to break down the games and the NFL. We've got some important questions to ask in a roundtable when we return on FST.
Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
And the New York Knicks has one of the easiest schedules the rest of the way. If you look at a site like Tankathon, the Knicks have right now the 20th easiest schedule the rest of the way. Folks, they're 2.5 games behind Philadelphia. Philadelphia's starting to slip a little bit. I don't think the Knicks get the 3, but they should be a top 16 in the Eastern Conference.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The Early Line,
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire,
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback,
Pharrell,
backup quarterback.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live,
Just
prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We did.
information. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting, ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Fantasy Sports today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, and it is now time for one of my personal favorite segments that we do here on the show. We don't do it often. That's probably why I enjoy it. Fantasy Roundtable. And what I like about this is I get to sit across a pretend it's round table from Joe Pisapia, and I get to ask questions and then I get to listen. And I think that's a lost art in this world. Just listen. And I promise everything you want to know will be told to you. So with that said, Joe, here we go. Question number 1. And I already have a theory, and like most, I'll offer mine unsolicited. The question is, where will Bill Belichick land? Now, if Coach Belichick chooses to stay in the league, I can see a situation where Belichick, the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers are the talk of the town. That's just me, but I want to hear from you. Joe, where will Bill Belichick land?
Wow, that's a spicy meatball you just threw out there. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that would be a lot. I mean, to go to the Jets after all the, after you fax your resignation after being the Jets head coach, I know it's not the same ownership, but still, like, actually, no, it is the same ownership. When I say it's still Woody Johnson, that's right. It was after Mr. Hess passed away that all happened. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a fun full circle game to play, to go back and you want to play the Patriots 2 times. And look, you can make the argument the defense is there. You have the quarterback. You have a chance to get in there and, possibly get that record. Like, he's not that far away from Don Shula. Like, that's the thing that he wants to get to. So Bill Belichick has 302 wins. Don Shula has 328. I think that's what he's chasing, right? So 26 wins away from tying him. That's probably going to be a 3-year ordeal, right? Even if you have just a mediocre team, it's probably going to be what you're looking at to get there, somewhere in that range, or even a good team. So you've got to commit to Bill Belichick. So I think the team that makes the most sense, to be honest, that I think is really ready to go, and it's a team that's gone for Patriot guys in the past in the front office, is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons moved on from Arthur Smith, and the Atlanta Falcons have an all-world running back in Bijan Robinson. Bill Belichick loves to run the football. They have a good offensive line for running the football. They have a great possession wide receiver who has even more ability than Drake London. You've got Kyle Pitts, phenomenal tight end in terms of talent, just completely underutilized. And if there's one team that utilized the tight end position in a very unique way over the years, it was definitely the New England Patriots, okay, with multiple different guys, not just Rob Gronkowski. And I think Arthur Blank is a guy that just desperately wants to win. Like, he wants to see the Atlanta Falcons win a Super Bowl. And he is an owner who's getting up there in age. And, I think he wants to see this now. And they're in the NFC South, a very winnable division, a division where, team barely over 500 last 2 years is walking away with this division. You get the opportunity not only to coach a good defense in the Atlanta Falcons with a very good secondary, something that Bill Belichick would value a great deal. Terrell's a great player. They've got a lot of talent in that secondary now. But you also have basically a vacancy at quarterback. So if you're Bill Belichick, you can go in there, pick your quarterback, your veteran guy off the scrap heap, make a trade, do whatever you want to do, get your quarterback. And basically everything else is in place that Bill Belichick likes. And the owner has a history with whether it be Dimitroff or Pioli or any of the guys that have worked for the New England, for the New England Patriots, and then for Arthur Blank and the Atlanta Falcons at some point, like, they will go and they will bring those guys over. So it's something that Arthur Blank covets, is that Patriot way. And Arthur Smith, unfortunately, fell short. I think he was getting a taste of that via Vrabel from Arthur Smith, and it just did not work out that way. I think that's what he thought he was buying, and it's not the same thing. Now, Mike Vrabel would also be a very appealing coach there, I think, for the Atlanta Falcons. But if Bill Belichick's landing spot is not the Atlanta Falcons, I think I would be surprised. I think it just makes the most sense for everybody. Justin Herbert's a great situation to walk into because you have a franchise quarterback, but the Chargers have a lot of cap issues, and I think that's going to be very prohibitive. So whoever comes in that situation, you also have to play in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. I think going to the NFC South, where you got to deal with Tampa and Carolina, who can't get out of their own way, and the New Orleans Saints, who look like a complete train wreck at times this year. If you are chasing Don Shula and you're 26, 27 wins away, I think the best way to get that in 3 years is probably go down to Atlanta and go down south and go to the NFC, Matt. That's my landing spot that I think makes the most sense for everybody, and I would not be surprised to see it happen.
All right, it's a great answer, and you've kind of answered the next question. So it's what open head coaching job is the best. And full disclosure, I'm a Commanders fan, and I think that division could be ripe. So maybe don't sleep on that team. But I think you've already answered this question of the open head coaching job being the best is Atlanta, and then you'd go down to San Diego. So with your permission, we'll move on to the third question, if that's okay. Just give me a nod.
Well, again, you made the same mistake I did before, which is every now and then we still say San Diego Chargers. But the thing is this, the Charger job is so great because you have the franchise quarterback, and that's the hardest thing to get. Mm-hmm. So I do think at the end of the day, that is the best long-term job because you have Justin Herbert in place. And I think, even though the Falcons are ready-made, you have to bring a quarterback into that situation. And Bill Belichick could do what he used to do like back in Cleveland, right? Or even Bill Parcells did with the Jets, which was ironically the same thing, Vinny Testaverde, right? Bring in some veteran quarterback, manage the offense. I mean, Joe Flacco is going to be looking for a job next year, I think. And Joe Flacco is going to get a job. Or Jacoby Brissett. One of those kind of guys, I think, is a perfect fit for Bill Belichick to go to Atlanta and just win right away and just be competitive right away. But in terms of the long term, I think it's without a doubt the Chargers because Herbert's a guy that you could win with for 10 years. That's the difference. Now, I would also say that before the New England Patriots made their decision, that the New England Patriots job is a very coveted job. It's tough because you got to live in the shadow of Bill Belichick. But at the same time, you have an owner that is always committed to winning. And Robert Kraft cares about winning. Robert Kraft and look at his history of hiring coaches. His history of hiring coaches is Bill Parcells, Hall of Famer, Pete Carroll, Hall of Famer, Bill Belichick, Hall of Famer. So if you want to work for a good organization, since Robert Kraft took over the Patriots, they are the model organization in free agency in this era of the NFL, whether you like it or not. So that was probably the best job, but that job has been filled.
All right. I like it a lot. Now, this next question here, I don't see the reason. So my answer is going to be no. The question is this: will the Steelers move on from Mike Tomlin? And my question is this: what are you going to move on to? A better version of Mike Tomlin? What Tomlin has done for this organization, for the culture of this team, I don't think that there's anything wrong, egregiously done by Tomlin or his staff to warrant moving on. But I'd like to hear from you. Will the Steelers move on from Mike Tomlin? And if so, why?
Here's a fun fact. Mike Tomlin is just 13 wins away from passing Chuck Knox and then passing Dan Reeves. And when he does that, he is going to be in the top 10 all time in NFL coaching wins. I'm with you. I know there's been rumors about Mike Tomlin. What are we doing here? If Mike Tomlin got fired, Mike Tomlin would have 5 job offers in 8 seconds. And the biggest one would be from the Carolina Panthers because that owner is a former minority owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a longtime Steelers fan. I don't think there's anybody that would covet Mike Tomlin more than Tepper. And I think that would be the place where the money would be so huge, I don't think Tomlin could say no. It would be frustrating because he'd have to kind of tear everything down because things are not going well. They're going to lose more. Bryce Young was not the right pick. That's going to hurt them. Trayvon Walker, probably not the best number 1 overall pick, too. He's a good player, but again, you miss on Hutchinson, you miss on Stroud. You can't do that and win in the NFL. I mean, but Mike Tomlin is in this situation where, he is not quite where Andy Reid and Bill Belichick are in terms of win totals. They're the 250 and 300 range, but he's at 173, and he's been doing it for a very long time. I think I put it to you a couple weeks ago, right, when we heard that Russell Wilson news. Mm-hmm. The Steelers just got to figure out quarterback. Since Ben Roethlisberger, they have not figured it out. It's not Mason Rudolph. It's not Kenny Pickett. It's not any of these guys that they've tried in between. So if you go back and you move up draft capital or spend some draft capital to move up to a higher tier to take another quarterback, if you go I don't think they're going to make a move for Justin Fields. I don't think that's going to happen. But if Russell Wilson can get with this group of wide receivers and get in an environment where he's supported and he can just kind of manage games and hand the ball off and do that stuff, I think you could win with Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. But I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get rid of to get rid of Mike Tomlin is just insane. Like if that happens, I don't care what happens with this playoff. He is a great head football coach. These guys do not grow on trees, just like franchise quarterbacks do. And every time a team thinks they're too smart and they get rid of a franchise quarterback, it haunts them. And I think the same thing here with the coach. The Belichick situation was different 24 years is a long time. They haven't won in a few years. Mike Tomlin's in the playoffs right now with what he's had to deal with this year. And we're having this conversation. It's nuts. That's what the buzz is around there, that this could happen. I think it would be incredibly short-sighted, a terrible move for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they did it. And at the end of the day, I don't think they will.
So wait a minute. You're telling me that the buzz on social media amongst fans isn't reality and shouldn't?
Well, it is sometimes. Hey, the buzz was Arthur Smith wasn't going to keep his job. But look, the buzz was Arthur Smith was going to be gone. He was. Buzz was Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft were going to part ways. They did. So it's not always wrong. It's just, as you always say, the prisoner of the moment stuff, right? Where you're looking at the NFL in the picture, and if you can't win, then somebody else has got to come in and do it.
It's infinite.
I mean, look at the Tennessee Titans. Should they have gotten rid of Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel's one of the best coaches in the league. No. It was a horrible move. All the players, Taylor Lewan was the first guy going on social media. He was on the Rich Eisen show. When it happened, he was like, what? They fired Mike? And you could tell from just the players alone what he meant to that team and that organization. So, look, Mike Vrabel is probably the most coveted free agent coach because he's a guy in the modern day NFL that's winning. Mike Vrabel is going to get a whole lot of money somewhere. I don't know where it's going to be. He could even sit out a year and just wait for the job that he wants if the one that he wants isn't available this year. But let me tell you something. Like, Vrabel right now should not be out there, and some team that's very smart is going to snatch him up.
Yeah, and he won't be for long. All right, we got a couple of minutes left up against the break, so let me just jam a couple more questions in here. A lot of revenge narratives today. I love it, pro wrestling guy. Who's got the best of their revenge? Is it going to be Stafford, Goff, McCarthy, the Packers? How are you leaning?
I'm going to take the Mike McCarthy revenge, and I'm going to take the Stafford revenge. And it's going to upset a lot. I mean, the Detroit Lions fan is... I'm sorry, guys. Like, I'm not trying to be a buzzkill. Like, I know it's been a great season. And I got a lot of friends who are Lions fans, and they've had a great year. They're so excited about everything. They had a miserable Thanksgiving, but outside of that, they have been really loving life. And it sucks to have your old guy come in and stick the knife in. This is very like Godfather, Fredo kiss, you broke my heart kind of thing. Like, this is that kind of territory. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Stafford today. We'll see if I'm right. We'll see.
All right, Joe, take us to the break with this one. I'll let you have a rant. Are the Eagles going to pull out of their tailspin? Yes or no? Floor's yours.
No, I don't think they're going to. I think this is going to end poorly for them in Tampa, of all places. I think give me Tampa on the money line. I've said it before. The secondary can't stop anybody. No A.J. Brown, banged up Devonta Smith. I just think the Eagles have just run out of gas. I think the season took its toll. Injuries took its toll. Losing Shane Steichen took its toll. Too many losses at the end of the day for the Eagles, and I don't think the confidence is there. And we saw it with the Miami Dolphins. You lose big games. It's tough to reinflate that balloon. It's tough to get hyped up again to play in these big games. And Tampa is playing with house money. Nobody expected Tampa to win that division. They did. Baker Mayfield can make a statement. They've got a lot to play for. All the pressure's on the Eagles, and I don't think they're going to come up. In fact, I think they're going to come up short. We return to close out FST right here on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
And the New York Knicks has one of the easiest schedules the rest of the way. If you look at a site like Tankathon, the Knicks have right now the 20th easiest schedule the rest of the way. Folks, they're 2.5 games behind Philadelphia. Philadelphia's starting to slip a little bit. I don't think the Knicks get to 3, but they should be a top 16 in the Eastern Conference.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win at 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The Early
race
Line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time
I
decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for the 1.5. We got paid
We
for
did.
information. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on sports.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here. During the break, Joe and I talking business, having those conversations, and they spill over here onto the show. And I want to thank everyone, the graphics team, audio, our producers, everyone here at SportsGrid. Thank you so much for doing these shows because it really helps a lot of people, as well as happy MLK Day. And now, Joe, 3 things you're looking forward to today. It's time for 3 and Out. What do we have?
Yeah, I want to second that too. We have an amazing team here at FST. And of course, stick around here for Pro Football Today. They're going to take you through the next few hours. And of course, in-game live today, a little bit later than we anticipated. We thought it might be at 1 o'clock. Not so much today. So it's going to start at 4 around the time of the games instead. So we'll have a little bit more in-game live tomorrow. So that's a good thing because all those games are going on the holidays. So let's talk about what to watch for in Super Wildcard Weekend. Dallas, handle your business, Dallas Cowboys. Enough is enough. I'm tired of the memes. I'm tired of the who's popping in saying, how them boys doing? Like, I'm tired of all that stuff. They should be tired of it. Dak Prescott should be tired of it. CeeDee Lamb is a megastar. CeeDee Lamb is that guy. Get the football in his hands, force the football in his hands, good things will happen. Dallas, enough is enough. Go win a home playoff game against a team that you should win against. Stafford and Goff, this is fun. Sean McVay, I think, is going to be the X factor here. I think a lot of people, forget how good of a coach Sean McVay is and how special he is because, he had that great run. He was the boy wonder, won the Super Bowl, then things regressed a little bit. Then, now all of a sudden, Matthew Stafford, healthy again. Things are looking a little better, a little reinvention. There's even some talk that Sean McVay might walk away from head coaching. I remember that about a year ago. I don't think he's going anywhere, except maybe to the next round of the playoffs. So that's going to be a fascinating thing to see. And of course, last but not least, we know that the Patriots have their guy, and now where's Mike Vrabel going to go? Like that's another piece where, the Patriots put Mayo in. That was the guy they wanted. They stuck to the plan. I can't believe they did. But Mike Vrabel, wherever he goes, it's going to be a good landing spot for that team. That's for sure. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. From Matt, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.